Hello everyone, it's me again with my new video dedicated to talk about the testing. And as usual, that video will consist of three main parts. The first one part is introductional part, just couple of sentences of the reasons why I have decided to create that video. The second part is about the main topic, the main subject of that video, which is testing. And the last one is to talk about my approaches and my technique which I've decided to use in my platform. So let's start. The small introductional part. There is no any exact case or exact reason why I have decided to create that video. I think just it's a moment when I was thinking about the testing in general, what's better to choose for my personal practice in my platform, and thinking about that I found that it's possibly interesting subject to make a video. So that was basically the idea of that video. And really, yes, I have experience. I was working with many projects, complicated, and all of those projects had a test, unit tests particularly, and not just only. And that's why I have something to discuss and to share my own opinion, what was better, what was like bad. And now let's talk about in general the second part of that video about the testing, what types of testings at least I was working with, and what are the benefits and the problems of every type. The first one type, I think it's the most important, the most interesting, is the manual type, manual testing. And I think really yes, it's the type which can ensure the most highest quality of the product. It can ensure that everything works as expected, and it can provide the stability of your product, that your product, like a strong product, it works fine, it looks good, it no any interruptions, etc, etc. And why? Because people who are testing, they're specialists, and they're doing completely the same what the real user will do with your product. They will click the same buttons, they will check all the results. And the secret here is that there are some things which are difficult to automate, and even not possible. For example, QA specialists can pay attention that some feature gets slow behaviors. It works not like it had been working before changes. Also may pay attention that some blinking is happening or something like that. And that's why QA specialist can raise that problem to engineer, and engineer, if he is a professional guy, he can investigate what's the problem. At least in my experience, it has happened a couple of times. And me personally, having in mind what I did already, I can interpolate what QA is saying and understand that yeah, possibly there are some problems happened, especially if it's not always reproducible, but from time to time. And again, QA can pay attention that something happened wrong before, but now works fine. And then when it happens again, but disappeared after, QA may raise that question and that incident to engineer. And professional engineer, like I said, like me, will start investigating, will find a bug, and in that way it provides a more higher stability of and quality of your product. But such type of testing, it's too expensive, and I think you understand that, because you may have 100 cases, and even if you want to add, let's say, one more feature to your site, sometimes it requires to test all those 100 cases with and without that feature, and that means you already have 200 cases for testing. That means it's too much to test, to do, and too expensive. Here I want to pay your attention. A great role plays the QA leader of that department, who can distinguish the list of cases which are like the most important, and the cases which are less reachable by users. For example, just only 1 or 5% of users reach that place in the application, reach that case in the application. That's why maybe it doesn't make sense for now to test that inside even a regression part. But those which are user registration, user login, any deposits, withdrawals, or something like that, everything that should be tested without any exception. And QA leader should always think about what's the most important, what's less important. And that's the main his like qualification trait, to have skills to make better that distinguish. The next type of testing is end-to-end testing. It's similar to the previous one, with one exception, that it also assumes that will be tested the UI, but with the help of script and some technology which helps to execute that script in the browser. Meaning that it's the same like clicking on the buttons. The script will click on the buttons, it will type some letters in the input fields, etc. like that, and you may check all the whole flow of user registration, of user sign in, even deposit, everything like that. So it's also interesting, and it's also it also has benefits, because you can run many times, you can run during the night, you may have one dedicated machine, you may have couple of dedicated machine, and you may run so many times as you want such list of cases, and you may have, doesn't matter how much, 200, 1000 cases, it's everything is possible. And then just only what's required, if it's happening during the night, next morning to check what the results and investigate those results. And again, here is very important from QA leader to create such tests and to make possible quickly understand the reports and distinguish where is it's a bug, but where is it's just the case of the changes in the UI. And that's very important negative side of such type of testing. It's also too expensive, because you need engineers who are able to write such scripts and run them. Also, you have to pay for the machines, but I think it's we may miss it because it's like too low cost compared to monthly cost of the engineer. But those scripts are fragile, and like your product, it's not like constant product, stable product. It's always in changing. Something new is added, something is removed, etc. And that's why such 200, 100, 2000 cases should be adjusted according to align with the new requirements. That's why they are fragile, and that's why they may be broken, and next morning you may see a list of problems, among which you may find the real problems, which are bugs, and the problem which are simply related to the last changes which you did in your application, but you just was not able to have finished them before that testing. I mean the adjusting of the scripts. So, but it's very interesting and very powerful instrument to like an extra protection layer which you can use in your business to provide and ensure higher quality of your product. The next type of testing is QA automation. That type of test is also interesting and important. It's also similar to the previous one, but it assumes also the writing some script. It assumes also some engineers who are familiar with the technology and with the code writing can do that, but it assumes the testing just only the endpoints, just only testing the REST API. Not like the same, you can test the same user registration but without UI. You can just directly test how the backend work, how does the backend work. And again, that's my practice, what I've seen, because no, like in my practice QA automation area, that was the story about the writing tests for endpoints. Sometimes end-to-end tests and QA automation is confused in companies. I mean, QA automation may do, like I said before, end-to-end testing, which includes testing of the UI. But my experience is like that. QA automation, it's a specialist for testing endpoints of the backend. And the benefit of such test, of such type of the testing, is that it covers like the whole flow. So you're testing, if we are talking about the user registration, you are testing the whole flow of the process, the whole flow you can test, how everything works, if you can register user by itself. And that means it's like an integration test or something like that. You can be confident that the flow, the case works fine. The problem which are related to that type of testing, that sometimes it's difficult to test that flow because you have an extra dependency, third-party dependency, sending of the SMS, for example, email sending or something like that. But again, a skillful QA automation specialist can bypass that and do directly connection to the database and apply some changes, and in that way to bypass that problem, to bypass that integration, like a workaround. But also, I forget to say about the one more benefit, as such type of testing, it's more stable compared to end-to-end testing, which I was discussing before. Like, it's less fragile. Those tests are less fragile because it's less probable that the endpoint will be changed in a upcoming time. Less probable. That's why your investments may live really long time. You can run those tests from day to day, and I'm not sure that you are changing those endpoints too frequently. So I think that's also interesting, and QA leader so can also like understand what cases can be covered, what are the endpoints is necessary to be tested, etc. So I think that's it about the types of testing. The next very important type, and which I'm gonna to proceed the discussion with, it's unit test. And before I will jump to that, I just want to like summarize the previous three types which I mentioned, and to summarize, like saying about the QA leader. That person is responsible for managing those three main types, to manipulate them, to distinguish cases between every type, and in that way you may try to reach a less expensive QA protection layer, but at the same time with a higher quality and stability of that. So that's the main and key responsibility of QA leader, of the guy or woman who are engaged in that process. Also, one more interesting issue to discuss and to finish with the QA leader and with the QA layer protection, it's like KPIs. It's, from my point of view, not to say that it's controversial, but let's imagine the situation when it's happened a lot of bugs on production. Who are blaming that? And from my point of view, I don't like to say it, but QA. Despite that I'm an engineer, but I think that QA layer, in any case, should protect the production from bugs. If it's happened, it's the first layer, it's QA. So some improvements should happen there. If QA specialists can say that developers do many bugs. I understand, but it's the different topic which can be discussed. It's different topic. The number of bugs which are found by QA, it's like the question of the development, of the quality of the development, and in general the question to the application, because not always the number of bugs depend on the quality of the engineers. Sometimes it's really difficult and complicated application by itself. And business not always wants to do refactoring and invest money into improvements in the technical to improve technical quality of the project. That's the reason of possible further bugs. So that's a different point. Anyway, a QA layer should protect from that. And it's like the main KPI. The number of bugs from the development can be discussed, but it's a different and separate stack of problems, separate stack of activities, and so on. And here you can apply to prevent them the type of testing which I'm going to discuss, like unit test. It can help to reduce the number of bugs which are delivered to the QA layer. Unit testing, it's very interesting type of testing, and I think it's like if the previous, as I said, it was related to QA leaders, a separate person who are a professional in its particular area in a testing. But unit test, it's like a self-testing, that a type of testing which is related to engineers, guys who are writing the code. And unit test is an approach which can help them to ensure that everything works fine, which is done by them. What are the benefits? So the main benefit, I think, is unit tests should help. If it's not, you are doing wrong job, it looks like, but they should catch you with your bugs. Because that's the main goal of the unit test. There is basically nothing else. That's the main goal. Except of it, yes, I may list a couple of other benefits. First of all, unit tests can help you save time for the development. It's like a controversial benefit because from another side, I think that they are too expensive, and it's true. Unit tests really expensive, but for some cases, and if in general we will look, I think you can save time. I will explain the case which can exactly describe what I'm talking about. Let's say we have validation. Let's say we have a validation logic to validate username, user password, or something like that. And it's obvious that there are some rules. The password may contain special symbols, it may contain uppercase, lowercase, etc. The same requirement could happen for the username as well. And you have to implement as an engineer that logic. Yeah. And when you start, and let's consider you decided to follow test-driven development approach. That assumes you have a test case and you have a code which you are writing. So you start with an empty files for unit tests and for implementation. Then you start listing of all the rules and unit tests, like the password should has one uppercase, lowercase, and then you start the implementation which will satisfy the unit test and which will make they are green. And once you have finished, so yes, at that point of time looks like you spent more time than without unit test. But let's imagine the case if you don't have unit tests, how you will test all those rules. Possibly you will start the UI. When you starting the UI, sometimes it's really too expensive because the compilation, and especially if the project has thousands of files, the compilation may take 30 seconds. Then you need to open the website in the browser. It also takes some time. Then you have to click on the login or register button and you have to reach that case which can help you to reach the implementation and test your implementation, that it works with special symbols and doesn't work, password doesn't work without special symbols. And when you will start testing all of those cases, it may take a lot of time because you have a useless time on the starting, compilation, etc. Unit test runs immediately, that's why they can save time. And especially it plays a great role if we are testing after some changes. Let's say tomorrow business analyst came to you and asked you, let's change something in our code, in our rules, add one more or remove one more. And especially if you are working with regex, you may change a little bit, just only one special symbols in it, and your previous logic may be broken. That's why it's important to do after any changes to check and run all the possible cases automatically and very quickly. And that's why that can save your time and provide higher quality. The next benefit of unit test, apart from it can help to catch a bug, it can help you to create the documentation. Let's say a newcomer business analyst came to you and asked, can you help me, as you are an engineer, to check the logic because we don't have the documentation? What are the rules for the password? What are the actual rules? Because I want to add one more. Okay, then you can give him even the list of the cases, and I believe, because business analysts usually in IT industries, they are aware of computer science and they can understand all the logic and read even your code, such simple code like unit test code. It's not for all of the cases, but it may happen. That's why it's also unit test can help you to create the documentation. The last one benefit, I think you can do refactoring if you have written your unit test relying on the main principle to catch your bug. It means you can refactor anything inside without touching the unit test. That's very important. If you have such tests, that means you are free to do any changes inside. And ideally, the unit test shouldn't be changed. It's like one of the principle of the solid. Classes are open for extending but not for changes. That means if you have changed your functionality, and you can change how it's exactly, you can just to extend your functionality. That means your unit test should also be just only extended. If you remove some functionality, that means you are removing completely the set of test cases and the implementation by itself. You read it out. But if you want to change something inside, I assume it may happen because it's everything is in movements. Yeah, so you may change something inside at the same time. Unit test shouldn't be changed, and that's very important principle. So that's about benefits of unit testing, problems, etc. And now the last part of that video, what I have chosen to use in my platform, some like overview and practice. And also I will, because I just revealed just only the benefits of unit testing, and now I will talk about my approach and some problems related to unit testing. No, just such, in that way I've decided to right now to tell you. Okay, my approach, as I said, the main principle of the unit test is to catch you with your bugs, and I think that's the most important. What I've seen in my practice I've seen like a principle when one-to-one, I call it, when one method of any class, very small mechanism, has the same reflected unit test case. So one, even sometimes unit test file, unit test case, which has test cases, bound to one small mechanism of one huge class or one huge functionality. And I think it's, but it's my opinion again, I think it's a wrong way. Because except a headache, I didn't see any profit of it. Always when I saw the broken unit test, it was not because of it helped me to catch my bugs, but because I in general decided to change something in that small mechanism, working on the implementation inside that feature. And that's what I was thinking about, how to write the correct test cases, and my approach was to write the unit tests which are like which can cover that whole flow. Like it may include covering of couple of classes, it may include facade services. I may write unit tests for facade service, because I have unit tests just only to test the facade methods, and I do a mock of edge services. The edge services, it's like the final service which sends the request to database, to third party. So I mock something that is in integration, that is supposing any integration, and depends on how that mock is set, like successfully or with an error, depends on it, I may see and check the expected and expected with an actual result. But I'm free, I'm not checking the small mechanism. I can play with those mechanisms inside. I can do refactoring very simply. I can remove something completely from it. to put something inside, and my unit test will not be touched. The whole flow is covered by it. And I know many developers tries to reach the coverage of the application, like as it's higher, so it's better. But it doesn't make sense. It doesn't solve the problem. Why you have to write the unit tests which are broken always when you do any changes inside? And there is no one is analyzing what is the rate, what is the frequently when the unit test was broken because of really a bug. So what is the capacity of that unit test? Because from the investor point of view, from the business point of view, they are investing money. For what they are investing? They are investing for you just simply writing the test cases which will be broken once you do any simple changes. No, it makes sense from my point of view to invest in something that will really help you to protect yourself from the bugs. And I know you may have the different practice, but at least my practice with the unit test, it was like I said, a lot of headache, and because of it's one-to-one. That's why I've decided to create, maybe I have a coverage 20 or I don't know 10, 15, not 15 but 20%, but it's stable tests. They really can ensure that everything works fine. Also about the benefit related to unit testing, I've missed to tell you. Unit test can bring you an additional extra feeling that everything is fine, meaning that everything is fine, meaning that when they are green. Let's say an example. If you have been working with one project and now you want to jump to the previous one which you didn't touch for 6 months, and then when you jump you start that, and if you have unit tests you can run them and to see that everything works fine. If they are green and you're a positive because you think that it's not damaged. If something is red, possibly it worth your attention to check what's happened. Maybe you missed some configuration, maybe you didn't install any models or any package or something like that. Maybe even collision with a version or anything happened different. Also, the problem related to unit test is the framework, what framework to use and what decided to use me personally. There are people who like Karma, there are people who like Jest, I don't know. Karma, yes, it's a very good test runner, very good framework, but I found it's difficult because under the hood it has Chrome headless browser. And it's difficult, at least it's happened with me, difficult to pull that Chrome headless browser inside the Docker container. That's why I've decided I had a headache related to that, and I've decided do not use Karma. But if it's already existed in the project which I'm working with right now, that's okay. I'm saying just only about my own project. The next, Jest. Jest also I found sometimes difficult because it may run test cases in the workers, and it's possible, but it's difficult to inspect them with the node inspector to intercept. That's why I decided to use Mocha. It's pretty straightforward, it's clear, similar to all of them. I'm using that test runner with the child library. So that's my solution. Also, a very interesting approach, and it also is possible to use in the commercial project we are using it. It's like the usual built-in frameworks or approaches of frameworks, like Angular has its test bed, Nest.js has the same pattern of creating the test models which can be used for testing. Why it's a benefit of such approach? Because you can compile the stack of different services, and you can replace, because of dependency inversion, one of those services with a different, and your unit test can cover testing all the vertical of invocation through those services. So you can test not just only one service and one method, you can test how the process works inside. And with the help of such compilation, test-bed compilation, you can compile the exact version of necessary services and test how they are working together. And it's easy, it's like really clear. So that's why I like it. Also, about again, returning to the pattern which I'm using, just only the test cases for facade or for facade services, I want to provide like an example how I usually write unit tests for Angular application, especially if it has, not especially, usually when it has state management. I prefer just to write unit tests which cover dispatch and selectors, and that's it. So in that way they look pretty simple. You have just only dispatch, subscribe to selector, and then compare inside what the actual and expected state you have, and if it's like in line with your expectation, doing some activity. And if you have a pattern of your application layered base, meaning you have a core layer which contains the whole logic of your whole business logic, and you have also presentation layer, maybe API layer like it's usually presented, and if you have a core business layer and you have like a state management which manages it, you can just check how the whole logic of calculations of changes is happening just using dispatch and selectors, and to mock the edge service, which are API services, which are like on that bridge between the core layer and your API layer. So I think that's it what's related to testing. I tried to describe the available types, I tried to provide some suggestions, my point of view, and what I decided to use in my application, and problems which I saw in the which are related to unit testing. Thanks for your watching. If you have anything interesting what you think you can to add in the comments, I'm really happy to read. If any new interesting patterns, approaches you can share, because my approach just not to pursue the coverage of unit tests, but to pursue the main goal, to catch me with my bugs. That's the main and important role of unit testing for me, and to reduce the costs. I want to repeat, it's easy to repeat dispatch and selector test case so many times how many you do need, and to do some mocks, except to write the dozens of small unit tests for such small mechanism inside of some flow. So that's the practice which I follow in my platform and in my life. And it's easy also to describe, it's easy to maintain, it's less fragile. So thanks for your video, bye.